Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending this third session with YouthLink on the topic of organization from a psychic perspective. And last time we tackled the possibility that this council of wise people, when Mother put that on the table, she had no clue about what people might or could be in terms of gender, race, or in terms of age, or in terms of background, whatever, only to be a kind of, let's say, individual who is connected to something which is higher, and that he could lead to some extent the community to some better outcome. So, in your opinion, according to you, what could we do to overcome this difference and this separation between people, and in particular, how is it possible that you could come up and with proposals and with ways to develop the community, and you would be very welcome and listen to and everything. So we could start on this topic, if you're okay.
Last podcast we also talked about entry process and the differences between Aurovillian and volunteers and guests, and I think that could be a good start point to look at. In my perspective, I think observing like what's been happening with the entry process and the newcomer process and this and that, I in the years started believing that it would be much nicer to have a welcoming process than a selecting process, because I've seen how the selection was never really so fair and understood fully by the people selecting, or I call them judge because they act like judge, and who are they to judge who's coming in and not. And I've seen people that got denied to come in Auroville that were amazing people, but they didn't have the economical means to be here, and different backgrounds maybe, and they were not accepted and things like that. And then we have serious people that have serious issue in the community and nobody deals with that, and that made me question a lot of things. And I think on a practical level, it would be nice in the future that we go away from a judging process and move towards an integration process, which is not just 3 days Yucca program where people just get to know surface things about Auroville, but more dive into a 1 year experience where you really get to know how you can be useful in the community and explore different places, people. I think that would be already one nice step to go ahead and possibly make a more strong exit process. That if you do not behave, if you're really damaging or scary for people or whatever, then we have a solid exit process to send people out. Another thing is that we are very much divided into labels. We have Aurovillians, we have guests, we have volunteers. And often I find that volunteers are not just volunteers, but mainly, so in some places they're really treated nicely and welcomed and supported and all of that. In other places, I want to say the word used, because they come, they pay a contribution, they pay a house, they pay food, they pay everything, and nobody gives them anything. And, we expect to have young people, and not every young people has savings to come and volunteer. And everywhere I go in the world, wherever I volunteered, I get food, I get stay. I don't have to provide myself this thing on top of giving my energy to a place. Otherwise, I go and make money. Like, what's the point? I understand the old posture of service and all of that, but also people have needs. And if we cannot find a balance there, I don't think we're such a beautiful integrated place in that sense. Yeah, so how to break those labels and have more equality in terms of what we need, and how to share that within the community with whoever comes in. and take it further from there. And, you know, sometimes maybe instead of taking your money, your energy is so inspiring that you're already giving so much to the growth of the community. Definitely, there is something to look into the economy of how we support people, because we talked a lot about basic income and circular economy and this and that, but it's not really happening as of now. I don't know much in technicality why that happened, why we stopped giving maintenance to everybody, why, you know, some people get, some people don't. Some places they're like, no, you can volunteer, but we don't give any money. So I think that it's something that should go back to the primitive, like to the first vision, where everybody has a basic income, we all have our expenses covered, and we're here to give and not to think about how to bring food at home at the end of the month. As of now, those are few practical things I can think of.
When we're talking about differences, I think it's quite important to go a little bit into the psychological and social reasons of why we try to differentiate from one another. My current understanding might be flawed, but is that differentiation, one of the main drivers of differentiation is fear and your own insecurities. What I mean by this is that we try to differentiate when there is, for example, a lack of resources. When we only have food enough for 5 people and we're 20, I will try to differentiate and judge who is worthy for me to get this food. I'll first start with maybe my family and then move on to close friends and try to differentiate. And if there's enough bread, maybe I'll also pick someone who looks the same as me, thinks the same as me. So this kind of lack of resources or this scarcity mindset is one of the reasons why we try to differentiate and try to judge the value of one another instead of being able to share more openly or maybe more fair, in a more fair manner. Like you could just as well pick 5 names from a raffle, but we like to have that choice and that decision-making power. And insecurities, what I mean by that is that we, one of the things that I would like to get into is unlearning certain paths, certain educational things that we've been taught. And one of the things, if I'm to get a little bit into the philosophical aspect of this, is that in education, for example, modern day education, we value people based on how well they can retain information and repeat the information that they've gathered. And in the case that you're not good at that, you're deemed to be inferior to your peers, for example. And a person like this, who might have built up an insecurity due to these things, would try to find different ways or different reasons why they're still worth something. And it starts to become twisted. It starts to become some mundane reasons like, I'm still more worth than you because I'm older than you. Or I'm still more worth than you because I'm of a certain race, certain class, certain... Well, that's the thing with differentiation. The moment we start to differentiate each other, there is no end to how small or how petty we can differentiate each other. Like we can differentiate each other on like everything from our heights to like the position of your eyeball. Like we can differentiate on whatever level we want, and there's no end to this. So in order for us to come out of differentiation and kind of this feelings of superiority or inferiority, because they're both the same side, the different sides of the same coin, I think it would be really worthwhile to look into maybe building programs or courses where we focus a little bit more on why we're the same. Or despite the certain differences, what are some things that bring us together in this moment? It doesn't have to be specific that we all have to love each other and harmonize with each other, but at least to the basic principle that we all, to borrow your words, have psychic beings inside of us. We all have innate knowledge within us that can come up in different times. Maybe one person is a bit further on their journey than another, but that we're all on the same path of learning. And I think one of the things that really bring us together and move us forward is the power of creativity. Creativity, a little bit less, but the word I was looking for is curiosity. Because curiosity is quite a vibrant force that is not tapped into enough and is also somewhat killed by modern education. You're not taught to be curious. You're taught to remember what you've been told, which is obviously the absolute truth and nothing but the truth. And you're not taught to question your teacher. You're not taught to question authority. You're not taught to be curious of the world. But then once we start actually having this curiosity more alive, with curiosity most oftentimes comes joy in discovering. And differences before, when differences without curiosity would lead to fear, differentiation with curiosity leads to learning, leads to finding out like, oh, we're different in this way. How cool is that? Instead of, oh, we're different in this way. I'm scared of you.
So does it mean that if we want to overcome difference, whatever it is, it could be youth to old, or man towards woman, or race, or whatever, is that, because I come back to the topic of organization from a psychic perspective, if we put our if we behave from a different space, from a different field, because psychic is not only being, it can also be a field, or it can also be qualities. If I try to behave more from a, let's say, a more deeper perspective, there is no difference anymore, because I can take whoever is around me as another myself, another me. Whereas if I behave from what I am when I used to be as an ego, as an individual, as a separate being, everyone around me is different. And so does it mean that if we want to promote some kind of more psychic organization, it is the way that we behave deeply within ourselves that might lead the situation to be different?
To try and answer what you just asked, I think, how can we try not to see other people as external to us, but more an extension of ourselves? So in the moment I'm talking to someone, often we might have experienced that, we're experiencing a mirroring, like it feels like you're mirroring me, or oh, you're so right, like I feel so much like you, or oh, I feel completely different, and we're arguing. But then eventually I go home and I'm like, oh, he added something to my opinion. So I think, how can we it's hard, it's not easy, because we have a strong ego as humans also but like how to go away from that separation and really see each other as a big extension. And in Auroville itself also, when the whole conflict started, for me was a little interesting to, I had friends a bit here, a bit there, and people seeing things differently. And I think I'm one of those that likes to listen to everybody, and maybe there are some people that trigger me and some opinion that I don't like. And it's not much about the opinion, actually. It's about the way the opinion is put and what kind of, tone it's used and behavior it's used in expressing that opinion. And I think if we were able to find a posture within ourselves that it's not violent, that it's not, thorny, like that comes with that aggression, I think we all have a lot of valuable perspectives that are different, because we all complete one. And, a little bit of your opinion, a little bit of mine, we can create an actual vision or a possibility forward. And I remember, during the conflict, to hear some people talking about some values and some people talking about other things. And, they both made sense, but they were all arguing. And I couldn't stop to think, why are they arguing? Like, they both are making exact sense. They're all things that need to be done, but it's just that one person values more that and one person values more the other thing. And what I observe is that they both had an attachment to something, and because of that attachment, they ended up fighting instead of, or past experiences with each other that were never healed, tapped into, or so I think definitely there is a need, as we know, of restoring that trust we talked about last time also. And the only way to restore trust is to try to be together, to try again and again and again, and be more open-minded and one open heart every time you meet. Maybe the first 2 times are a bit rough and a bit and maybe the 3rd time you're laughing together, and who knows, maybe the 4th you're having dinner together. But to be open and let go of our, posture inside. I want to use one of my examples without names, but there are a few people that I held a lot of rage against 2 years ago. And every time I saw them on the road, I was like, and I would start blabbing within myself, and I'll, insult them in my head and use bad words towards them, not even in their face, but just within me. And I could feel my body changing. I was starting to be hot and getting a headache. And so I started questioning, why do I even do that? It's not affecting them. It's not affecting anything except me inside myself and the weather inside me. And one day I woke up to a dream, and the dream was a bit weird. But it was pretty much, in that dream, I was hanging out with these people and we were laughing together. And for the first time, I felt them in a neutral space where I actually have no idea who they are. I just know the bad things I think they're bad that they did. And I woke up feeling like, why do I feel fine with them right now? Because I laughed with them in my dreams. And I went to Lateras and I saw them. And for the first time, I didn't feel rage. And I was like, whoa, actually that feels good. And I know that I still don't like them, but I'm not holding anything towards them anymore. And that opened me to, receive a different perspective that I didn't want to hear. I'm going a little bit every direction, but I don't think it's as simple as black and white how I'm saying it. There are, people that really got hurt in many ways, and people that need to be taken accountable for what they did, but how to be more open to listen to each other.
When you were talking, Luke, it reminded me of an experience I had at some point where I also had a lot of difficulties with certain people. And I never actually met them. I just heard from them, from other people. And I just heard about their horrible deeds and whatever. And in my head, they were almost like demons, or monsters. I couldn't picture them as human. They were just like evil entities habiting human bodies. And one day I met them and discussed with them, and suddenly I realized they're not monsters, they're just human, and they have needs and feelings, and that's why they're acting in a certain way that does not go in the same way of my values and needs and feelings, but they're still humans, and they're acting out of fear probably, and they're trying to do the best they can from what they know and what they think and what they feel and what they need. So from that, I got a lot of, I wouldn't say, maybe compassion for them. And I could see them as human and be more motivated to have discussions with them and see how can we move forward together.
I think going back to how people judge other people, it's important to note that even us, when we're judging actions. We're not judging the person because we don't know who that person is deep down. So we're really just judging their actions. And we're constantly changing and constantly growing. So I feel like judging actions and saying, yes, you can come to Auroville because you acted this way, or no, you can't because you acted that way, is a very limiting way of judging.
I'm pretty sure Sri Aurobindo said something on this, but I can't quote him, so I won't. I like to believe that there's different planes of existence. There's the very physical realm where things are objectively happening. But then there's that whole realm within my head, which I think people refer to as colored glasses a lot, like sunglasses, where it's a whole dimension that plays in my own head. And it gets overlapped with the physical realm. For example, I'm looking at Aurora now, and I can also purely look at Aurora in the objective realm and observe certain details about it, like she's wearing sunglasses on her head. But then comes the personal, interpretational realm, where I start putting different reasons as to why. For example, she's wearing her glasses on her head because she wants to look cool. That is, and in my head, that's a reality because I've decided to have it as so. And in that way, I can decide that somebody's a demon to me because I have decided to. And it's almost sometimes just subconscious, right? It's certain actions that trigger something, and it's like, oh, no, that person's not good. Or like danger, danger. Or like, oh, that person's great. They're like sunshine and rainbow. And I think it's really vital to be aware of the fact that we all have these sunglasses. Because the moment that we recognize that these are sunglasses and not the objective truth, then we are open to the realm that, or the possibility that this might not be the case. And obviously, like, I'm sure somebody else, like Lucrezia, for example, has a completely different reason to why Aurora is wearing sunglasses on her head. But maybe only Aurora knows why she's wearing sunglasses on her head, or maybe she even doesn't know. And a lot of the quote-unquote differences that we observe in one another, I would say is largely in the sunglasses realm, where we're thinking that there are differences, because it's all playing on the mind level. It's within the head that there's this difference, that difference. When we try to objectively look at the world, this is my personal belief, so it's my own sunglasses, but I like to believe that the earth itself is one singular entity. Huh? Lucrezia says the earth is flat. Keep that on record. No, I like to believe that we're all on the same, we're one same organism, which is, I take certain beliefs of that from modern day science also, with points that, for example, almost, what is it? At least more than half of all the cells that we have in our body are not genetically us. They're the microbiomes, bacteria that live in our guts, the follicles that are on our skin, the water that comes in and out of our body. We're constantly trading with the environment around us. And if we're constantly trading, what point does something become me? And what point does it not become me anymore? And with that question in mind, my easiest answer, or the one that I chose to believe, is that we're all the same organism. So I like to believe, and this is my own sunglasses, that the earth itself is objectively one single organism that is interplaying with itself, interacting with itself. And us with our sunglasses try to see it as an individual and different people in that system, and refusing to see the differences. And yeah, let's try to take off some sunglasses and see the world.
Going along with your sunglasses metaphor, I think when we're trying to connect and communicate, often what we do, rather than both taking off our own sunglasses and putting them on the table and saying, okay, we're seeing things how we see them, we tend to try and put on our sunglasses onto someone else, and we're like, here, take the way I see this, which in reality...
I will stop to wear sunglasses from today onwards. And for me, I feel like difference, it's like part of us that we still didn't have like accept or visit. So how to overcome differences? I will say that it's connected with like this inner being that we all have, that from this perspective, I think there is like no differences in between people, but how to bring this like absence of difference in a more like practical and realistic way? Actually, I don't know.
I might have mentioned this last time also, but I think a good step to look at the differences in cultures and, you know, people we have in Auroville and opinion and this and that, but focusing more on culture because it's a real background, I would say. I think it would be really interesting to take back the study of the pavilion and really dive into it and try to find possible action to create pavilions that are meant to be what they are visioned for. Where each culture can really, you know, be authentic in their own culture and express it to all of the community, and we can share that with everybody. And instead of focusing on creating different business that showcase different food, how can we really do it as a cultural exchange more than a business? And I think that would bring a lot of people together. I see it already with youth center festival, so many people are against youth centers. So many parents don't want to send their kids there because they have their opinion and fantasies of what happens there. And they never even came. And instead, when we have a festival, there are more than hundreds of people that come. And why? Because they can have a good time. They can have an exchange of different food. They can meet friends. They can have different music. And it kind of like, those glasses get taken off during festivals. and everybody's like, whoa, community. So I think if we would have more of these spaces, concentrating more on the exchange of culture, and every country has amazing arts, food, architecture, technology, and we're not making use of it. We're just, I feel, and it's my own statement, that we're stuck into what we created and we don't want to take from out as well. And there is so much to take and to give. And what a better way to do it through pavilions. I really like the vision. I read it multiple times and it's perfect. You're creating already a whole flow of energy within the community by sharing skills, by sharing beauty and art and all of that.
I liked the answer that I don't know, because I think the goal of this exercise to reflect on organization from the psychic perspective is not to give an answer, is to reflect on the topic. And when I started this project of psychic being, and I sent an email to a lot of people, would you like to contribute? Would you like to share? And I start with the question, are you in contact with your psychic being? And people had not even reflect on that beforehand. And this was the benefit of that, because a lot of people then came to me and say, I don't want to share, but at least I start to think about your question. And I think the benefit is, okay, how can we overcome difference? We don't know, but at least we are aware that this is not the fair way to behave from one to another. So, yeah, let's continue. How it is possible to overcome difference, not only from you but from race, from gender, whatever?
I think it will repeat like what we have already said, but now I don't think we can overcome like differences, because if we try to overcome them, that means we will look at them even more and give even more energy to them. So I think the best option is like to find like the opposite of the differences, like what connects all of us together, and to nourish this part, to nourish this connection that we have, to nourish, like to find goal also in common, like middle field. If, for example, I don't know, I prefer play football, Lucretia, she prefer going to the swimming pool. If one day in the week we go football, one day in the week we go swimming pool, and like most of us, we find this balance. Take note, eh? So I will say more that to overcome differences, let's stop to look at the differences and let's find common points, common goal, and let's put all of our energy on that.
Can I add one thing to this? No, I think it's beautiful what you said, and on top of that, I like to also say that differences are beautiful. I don't think they need to be overcome. They need to be understood, as you said, and shared, and embrace them all in that sense, and find the common points, as he said, to cherish and celebrate.
Okay, I will try to express myself in English, so it will be simple English word. I think when we are disturbed by other difference, it delivers a message from us. Ourselves. Like, I think if I am disturbing about something different from someone else, it means I'm not comfortable with something about myself. So for me, it's good to recognize, I'm disturbing by this comportment or this, I don't know, anything, and try to recognize why it disturbed me and recognize how I can work on myself to understand more. Like, I think it's kind of message, and just being disturbing and and start hating people, and it's just get worse and worse. Like if we just recognize, oh, I feel this feeling about this difference, and try to recognize what is the message from myself.
One thing I really like, one phrase in Auroville is that it's human unity in diversity. It's not human unity and uniformity, like certain big countries are trying to do, where it's one religion, one state, one ethnicity, We're trying to maintain human unity through the diversity. So the differences, no matter what they are kind of bound to be there also to a certain degree. And what I mean by this is that we have the history that we grew up with, the stories that we carry along the way. And there's always something to learn from these stories and from these differences. Like, for example, somebody who's 80 years old, he probably comes with a long chain of stories that perhaps you can learn a lot from. And perhaps some of the stuff are not relevant to you at the moment. And vice versa with a young person. They are actually having a completely different experience than a person who's 80-year-old, because they're witnessing 2020 as a 20-year-old instead of 2020 as an 80-year-old. And there is bound to be a stark difference in just the experiences that are there. And so whenever we meet people, if we have that intention of learning from the other person, whatever they have to offer, I think there can be a lot of positive interactions through the differences. Because if we're all the same and we're all clones of ourselves with the exact same experiences, we're probably not going to procreate. Like, we're not going to make children with each other. We're going to be like, get out of here. I know you already. There's nothing interesting about you. One of the reasons why we are attracted to other humans and our social beings is because of that richness of stories and the experiences that can be had through another person. So I think erasing differences is a very dangerous ideology, according to my understanding. And I think it's the respecting of the differences and being able to talk on that level of talking about the difference, not talking about me and you and how we're different. So it's being more sticking to the topic itself instead of becoming personal. That is an important aspect. And then to also acknowledge and respect the person for who they are as well. It's not like, you shouldn't think that way. How could you have not done that? Or how could you have done that? That's a very personal attack. It's a very personal statement. Instead of doing it like that, to have the curiosity to see, why did you do it like that? I would have done it differently, but what was your reasoning of doing it something in that way? Or why do you think that? Why is there a difference? I think finding that reason with that curiosity actually leads to learning and something beautiful coming out of the differences.
I'm not really sure how to phrase this, but I feel a big part of why we call ourselves different and all is just because of the type of life that we were brought up in, and knowing that if suddenly Namu was able to see things from my perspective, he would agree with me. So it's just knowing that it's all about communication and actually getting your points across.
I think I would like to rephrase your question of today about how to overcome differences. I will put it more that how we can help each other to celebrate our differences.
I was exactly thinking the same thing, and it's the value of a question which is badly phrased, let's say, because it's not a question of overcoming the difference. It's a question like Ramu said, unity in diversity. How is it possible to get all these differences to create something which is significant and transformative and uplifting? And I think in that aspect we are not being stuck on this difference, but we try not to overcome, but to, how to put it?
This is just an acknowledgement I want to give. It's not any idea or anything. But I also just want to say that Auroville is still in a very beautiful place with that. Despite compared to other places. I grew up in Italy and there is not much diversity. There is not much exchange of culture. There is not much openness to that. So I would still say that Auroville is in a good direction, despite the fact that there's still a lot of work to do. But we're good. We're going in the right direction if we really put Auroville together.
I want to raise the idea of right and wrong and good versus bad, specifically in the context of experiences. When we start having more and more fixed opinion of what is good and what is right and what is wrong and what is bad, it becomes hard to actually digest the differences that we have. Like if in my culture, it's good that older people are respected and younger people should give respect to older people, and this mindset is very stuck with me, it'll be very difficult for me to interact with a young person who's outspoken because it's just against the cultural norm that I've grown up with. And because of that, they might deem that as a bad experience when a young outspoken person challenges them despite them being older, which leads to further on animosity, difficulty in collaborating or talking in the future, blah, blah, blah. And nowadays I like the idea that there's no good and bad experience. There is just experience. And from every story, there is a possibility to learn and to grow. And I'm losing my point. Yeah, I'll get back to it maybe.
So if we consider that the question how to overcome any difference is not a good question because it leads us to understand that it's not about overcoming difference, it's about getting advantage of one's difference and to create something. You see, I like this image of a sun with multiple rays, and as each individual over the 7 billion of people are unique, we all have a unique way to reach the divine, so to say. So it's not a question of uniformity, like Namu was saying. It's a question of how is it possible to build and to create something new, different, which has not been achieved so far by the difference.
So first of all, I think that's a big part of what Auroville is doing, trying to coexist with our differences and even use that to our advantage. And I don't think it's a question that you can answer exactly because it really depends on which types of people you bring to the room to see these differences in, and that's what Auroville is doing. It's just bringing people and leading them to Auroville, however you or me were brought to Auroville. And I lost my point.
It's getting late, yeah.
Could we find a way to make matching this transformation process of benefiting from all differences to reach something which is more spiritual or divine or psychic related? How is it possible that difference is only belonging to this human stuff and transcending all these differences belong to something which is higher? I don't know how to put it.
Je pense que déjà on parle de différence parce que on parle avec ce qu'on voit de nos yeux physiques, avec notre moi, notre personnage, le personnage qu'on incarne tous actuellement, moi Maëlys. Donc je considère que vous autres êtes différents puisque vous n'êtes pas moi, mais c'est quelque chose de très physique. Et si on parle plutôt d'un aspect spirituel, les différences n'existent pas vraiment au final. On est tous des êtres incarnés, et je pense que la force d'Auroville serait de se concentrer plus sur cet aspect divin, cette vision divine de l'humain, et se détacher de l'aspect physique. Tu n'as pas la même couleur de peau, tu ne fais pas comme moi, sur l'aspect physique. Et dans ces cas-là, les différences n'existent plus dans un sens. C'est ma manière de voir les choses.
I think the old thought in my head started, and it connects with what she said a little, where we were trying to rephrase the question of how to get over our differences. But in fact, we didn't like the question. And in my head, I had this other question that played, that is, how can we get over our fears? And I think, wherever there is fear, there is conflict, there is difference, there is this, there is that. We always see something as a problem because we're unaware, we're ignorant, we don't know, and that unknown scares us. So I think two things to really work on and to use as tools is one, all the yogas that are proposed to us. There is an amount of work that people have created in the past hundreds years that can be used to, get to know yourself, to get over your fears, to all different techniques, and starting from breathing or, physical yoga or integral yoga, or they're all there for us to be used. It's more of a choice of will to want to go that direction or not as well. And information. I mean, as much as it is very difficult to inform ourselves nowadays, because there is so much information that can be overwhelming, it can be misleading, but to try and stay informed, because if we're not ignorant already, half of the picture is, understood a little better. And I'm not saying to take information as per what they're portraying, but to try and also think about this information and challenge yourself through it. If I read something, I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. Maybe I can also become more ignorant because I'm not authentic to how I really feel or to what is the real truth inside me. So how can we do that in a very open-minded space? Which somehow is ironic because institutions teach you the opposite, as Namu said in the beginning, They give information and you need to repeat the information. And as a teenager, I remember I had my high school in Italy and I left when I was 16 because I felt very uncomfortable. I had a lot of opinions. I wanted to explore them. I wanted to discuss that. And my teacher always told me to shut up or to leave the class because I had questions that were uncomfortable. And there was no point for me to be in education system if I cannot explore myself. And I think Auroville gave me a lot of that space to explore and to find different ways of educating myself, information, and even just being so many different cultures, I can learn about some other's country through them or through their perspective, and to constantly have this sharing of stories and passage of knowledge and all this stuff. But definitely I think to try to stay informed, to try to work on ourselves, and there are plenty of ways to work on ourselves that are already existing.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a conversation I had recently with someone. I had someone ask me, why do people in Auroville not like other people who make businesses and earn a lot of money inside of Auroville? And my first intuitive response was, well, why would you come to Auroville if your aim is to create a business and earn money? Like, why are you coming here? And he replied to me, well, then Auroville is for humanity as a whole, except those people, and then those people, and then those people. So it made me think a lot, and how in Auroville we accept a lot of difference, and we also celebrate a lot of difference, except when it comes to opinions or way of lives or certain little things where we're like, if you don't fit exactly how we want you to be, why are you here? But if we aim to be a city that's for humanity as a whole and that belongs to everybody, then how can we integrate everyone and how can we make it work? I don't know. Just reflection.
Well, there's actually a second part to that point, that Auroville belongs to everyone. The second part being that you must be a willing servitor of the divine consciousness. And it's that second part that is really important, is that you have to come here with the intention to try and work on yourself and to try and work on, you have to agree on a spiritual level with some of the intentions that are set by Auroville, by Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So though it belongs to everybody, it belongs to everybody who's willing to work together. If you're coming here not to work together, my question is, why are you coming here? But that's for them to answer. I will not answer that for them. Only they will know why they're coming here. And it's our deal to see why I want to keep interacting with that person. What can I learn from him? What do they bring to the table? Other than that, I got my previous point back. So I will be talking a bit on that if that's okay with everybody. There's a Buddhist way, you could call it a way of yoga, but a Buddhist thing where you repeat a very seemingly normal question to yourself over and over, or sometimes somebody else asks it to you. Something like, why do you get angry? And I thought I knew the answer, right? They asked, why do you get angry? And I was like, oh yeah, this is the reasons that I normally get angry. And then they ask you again, why do you get angry? And then you think a little bit, you try to feel, and you're like, oh, okay, actually, no, some parts of what I said over there was wrong. There's a deeper layer to it. And you explain. And you keep doing this over and over and over. And at one point, there's two things that became apparent for me. Firstly is that it's never that simple. It's not that there's one right answer and a wrong answer, and what I did was correct and what I did was wrong. There's a whole array of different things that are happening in the surrounding, which leads to certain actions. And secondly is that it's never a singular answer for anything, actually. Like they say truth is emerging, is present emerging. I don't know if they say that, but I think that truth is always present emerging. History, or something that has happened in the past, cannot be the truth of today. First of all, as an example, history is written by the victors. But even, let's say, yes, last week to go to football practice might have been the right answer for me, but that shouldn't dictate the truth of today. That I shouldn't just take from the past experience like, oh, it was the right decision to go to football last time, so I should also go to football today. It's that each time the truth is different, and one must reflect, one can choose to reflect on it and really try to find the truth that comes from within that says, this is something that you should try. And that's, again, with the good experience and bad experience, no matter what the outcome is, you always end up learning something. Even if it's the most horrible experience when you go to football and you break both legs and you are in a wheelchair for 2 months, you still learn how to live in a wheelchair. There's always something to learn. And it's like we have one life. Why not try to experience all the things that we can in that one lifetime? Or I don't know, if you're part of the whole world and we're one consciousness, we've been through this before, but I would like to go through it again in that case, to really try to feel what it's like to be alive in the broader sense of the term, not just through what I like and what I don't like, or what I think I like and what I think I don't like, or what people tell me I should like and what people tell me I shouldn't like. To have a bit more of a fluid perspective on this, I think, is a very interesting way of life that I aspire to live, though it's difficult.
Just to add with what Namo just said, I think the invitation that Sri Aurobindo and Mother have done for us to be here in Auroville and practice the integral yoga, it's also an invitation to that, to go deeper within ourselves and to let this part of us, like the inner being, take the lead and being able to celebrate the difference.
Also, I don't know, maybe it's because it's not the psychic being, but sometimes I think, oh, this is the answer that I've come to, this is the truth. And then 2 days later, I'm like, no, that actually isn't it. So I think also just because you're in touch with your psychic being, or just because I'm in touch with my psychic being, doesn't necessarily mean that the answer that I think I have is going to be the correct one forever. It's just that in that moment, I think I have a feeling that is the truth. But then the moment I try to convince someone else of it, they might be like, no, my psychic being tells me otherwise. And then if it becomes a ego fight of whose psychic being is more truthful, I think that itself is also another whole array of issue where it's not just about opinions anymore, it's about who's more spiritual. So, yeah.
So personally, I've had a few experiences where I was present in myself, but I could tell the difference between what I was doing and who I was. And those two things weren't matching at all. So it just goes back to the thing of not judging someone based on their actions, because sometimes that doesn't reflect who they are as a person, which doesn't mean not making them accountable, but it just means being more open-minded to the possibility that people can make mistakes. You can follow YouthLink on Instagram.
Thank you for listening to this testimonial. If you would like to take part in this project on the inner being, or if you have any questions or comments for our team or participants, please feel free to contact us using the email at the bottom of this webpage.
This is Auroville Radio, voices from the City of Dawn.
Thank you for listening to this testimonial. If you would like to take part in this project on the inner being, or if you have any questions or comments for our team or participants, please feel free to contact us using the email at the bottom of this webpage.
This is Auroville Radio, voices from the city of dawn.